Hi team, this is George. I want to go over our signature assignment. You can see that it's right here. The signature assignment we should start working on week 1. It's not due until week 6, but it's a good idea to get started because there's several components to it. And that's what I kind of wanted to talk about today was the assignment requirements. You're going to select 2 current topics. You're going to create a 4-hour training program, and your project should be an APA style. So we're going to be going over that in detail. Specifically for this opportunity, we're going to go over our needs analysis. We're going to go over training goals, specific instructional objectives. I created an interactive video for instructional objectives based on the Bob Mager and on his work. So you may see differences here and there. So the interactive video is a great chance to jump in and try a few things, see how it works. I enjoyed making it, so I hope you get something that is meaningful to you in the process. And then training evaluation methods. We're going to look at those 3 topics today. So as we do that, whoops, I am already ahead. Needs analysis or assessment. Basically, how do we know if training is needed? How do we know what to train? That's through our needs analysis or needs assessment. I'm going to share with you one of the tools that I used for a task analysis, which can be done after we know what needs need to be met. So as we look through this, let me grab my green pen here. Observation, that's one way to conduct a needs assessment. Now think of this as almost conducting a qualitative interview if you're going to use an observation, questionnaires, key consultation. So what are the pros and cons to each? Observation, you're not going to be interrupting the workflow much. It does take quite a bit of time, but you're not interrupting what's happening. So you're just taking an observation. Sometimes it can be hard to quantify, so you may have to add other things like a questionnaire with it. Questionnaires are an easy way to grab a large number of people, but if you don't leave open-ended questions, it's kind of difficult to get open-ended answers. You want just quick responses from that to get the most data that you can. So key consultation is when you hire in a subject matter expert, or you may have a subject matter expert on your staff to go and you consult with them on how the process and everything should be. And print media is a big deal because what happens is a lot of times we had an instance where we were building leading edge wing pieces for the F-35, and they changed the material. The material slightly changed and the process changed, but our media did not catch up. It wasn't print media, it was on a tablet where all the directions were, but the media did not catch up. So we all of a sudden had a spike in reject rates because the process was slightly different and it created unacceptable product. So print media is something that we can go to a lot as well to define the assessment. Interviews, you can interview people. There's a lot of pros to that. You can get a lot of outstanding data from an interview. What the cons are is you have to have somebody who's actually really well versed in how to interview, because you can get some biased opinions from the interview if it's not done correctly, and it takes a long time. Same thing with group discussion. You have to have a facilitator who can facilitate that group discussion so you can pull out the necessary data that you need, and it takes time. Those 2 things are directly involving the people from, let's say if it's a manufacturing area, right from the floor. So group discussions and interviews, fantastic data we can get from those, but it takes a lot of time and you have to have the expertise to conduct those too. And then there is tests as well, records, reports, and work samples. All of these, you can choose multiple strategies. Like typically in the training department for Lockheed Martin, we would pick observation. Sometimes we'd have a key consultation. We always use print media because you always want to make sure the processes were the latest and greatest. And we would always use group discussion. So we were all in-house, so it wasn't as time consuming and as expensive, but there is a cost for when you take people off of the product and bring them into an area just to discuss what's going on. So with those assessment strategies, as you go through your let me get there, I'm sorry. As you go through your project, right here in section 1, your needs analysis. So how you came to the realization that topic needed to be addressed, how does it apply to your company. Select 2 to 3, I would suggest 3 ways that you would gather the data that would tell you how or what the problem was, because what the assessment does is that's narrowing down what the issue is. It's finding the issue. It's not coming up with any solutions, but you can't have a solution until you know exactly what the issue is. So if you just use one of these methods, you may come up with an issue. Is it the right one? Don't really know, because you want to be able to relate the other 2 strategies with it, so you define what the best issue is. And when you'll find multiple issues, and here's the secret to it. When you find multiple issues, so let's have issue 1, issue 2, issue 3, issue 4, what is kind of interesting is that not all the time do we need to fix every issue, because they simply may not matter in the bigger scheme of things. So just because it's an issue, the first question that you ask yourself is it worth fixing? If it is worth fixing, you move forward and you fix it. So you would identify the ones that need to be fixed. So that's what a good assessment will do. It'll bring up issues that are worth fixing, and it'll bring up issues that, may not be worth fixing. So that's a fantastic way to get started with an assessment. Now, our objectives, there's an interactive video, so I'm not going to go deep into objectives, but we're going to use the Bob Mager style. So Mager objectives, instructional systems design objectives, and they're going to have 3 components. We need the condition, we need a performance, and we need a criteria. So the interactive video gets deeply into that detail. So now the reason why we're looking over that is because in this first part, in this first section, we have to have training goals and specific instructional objectives. So the ones I supplied are just slightly different than what you see in the syllabus that we have, but they're more focused from past experience in a manufacturing area. So that may not be what you're looking at, may not be what you're exploring. So you can have different objectives type, but they still need to be visible and measurable. So whatever that person has to do has to be visible, and we have to be able to measure it concretely. So that's the key with the objectives and goals. And evaluation methods. Kirkpatrick came up with 4 levels of evaluation. It's very useful to have these levels of evaluation for a training program, because we have our reaction, learning, behavior, and results. Reaction, those are our smile sheets. So everybody's nice and either happy or they don't like the trainer. Either way, so it's a reaction. But that's just your first level. That's a level 1. Learning, did learning occur? What can we use to see if learning occurred? We can have a test. We can have all sorts of surveys, reflections, things like that are graded with rubrics. So it just depends on what the situation is. And then we have behavior. And behavior is critical, because can they do? Because remember, our objectives, if we're building performance objectives, we have to make them from a perspective of performance. So can they perform? And remember, performance is a mixture of behavior and outcome. So performance, when we think about performance, it covers behavior and outcome, or in our case, behavior and results. So that is what performance is. Performance is a combination of behavior and results. So the behavior, can they do it while they're there? So if it's a hands-on thing with a simulator, maybe how to run a blast furnace, they can work the blast furnace in a simulator. Is it to solder wires together? They actually solder and are inspected to whatever level. And then the results of that are when they go back out on the job and you look back, did it have an effect? So what the evaluation methods do is they help us point all the way back to our assessment. So our assessment identified our issue. Now our evaluation methods need to point back. So they're going to make a U-turn and they're going to look at that issue. Did I make a difference to that issue? And it should be visible, and you should be able to report it, because one thing that training really has to do, and what we need to be very good at, is reporting back our effectiveness. Because are we effective for the organization? Just like our discussion question is HR a cost center? So if we don't want to be thought of just as a cost center, we need to be very good at our evaluation, specifically our results. So as we look at that from the perspective of our assignment, that is what you're going to put together for the section 1. You're going to have your needs analysis. So what did you use to come up with it? What 3 strategies did you use? What did you come up with? The training goals and instructional objectives. There's that interactive video if you'd like to follow that one as well. Let me know if you do it and if you enjoyed it, if it was meaningful. And then in section 2, we're going to have our training evaluation method. So that's where we want to make sure that as we're going through our analysis and we're going through our instructional objectives, they all meet at a point where we can evaluate our training and show that it is worth doing. It is worth it. It's cost effective. We're not a cost center where we're helping make money or save money for the company. So I hope this helps. Have a fantastic week, and I look forward to everybody on the discussion boards.